Okay, I'm live. I'm live. Welcome. August 26th, 2025. I'm Mark, your host, coming to you from Baker's Green Acres in lovely Marion, Michigan. If you don't know where that is, it's right here. Right here. Michigan is shaped like a mitten, and we live right here. That's why our Homestead conference here is called the Mitten Homestead Conference. All right. Tuesday, productive day here. The milking schedule has changed. I don't milk on Tuesdays anymore. I milk on Wednesdays and Fridays. Yeah, by the way, happy haircut. Got a haircut. Cranked my beard down a little bit. So I am fencing next door. I have about a 10 or 15 acre field that's going to be my fall pasture for my beef cows, and we started it a couple weeks ago. Not working on it straight, just working on it when I can. And today, Frank and I did all but 2 strands on the run that is across the road, or runs parallel with the road. And so after probably a couple hours tomorrow, I will be complete. And that's really nice because I can let the cows in there. There's some nice tall grass, and they're going to be happy people for a while. And then the field that they're on, the pasture that they're on, I'm going to rest that. I'm going to keep them off that for a little while, because typically in the fall, we're not in the fall yet, but when we get there, we get a little bit of rain and we have some nice warm days, and the grass does grow. So it's not the type of growth that you'd say, hey, let's get out there with the hay bine. It's not that type of growth. And this time of year is not a good time to make hay. It just doesn't get hot enough to dry the hay out for me. Anyway, so my strategy is I take one cut off when it's really nice and thick, easy to bale, dries down real good because it's hot, and get that all stored. And then the fields that I'm cutting off of, I'm systematically getting them fenced so that my second cut is actually a direct feed. So they're out on it, and that way I get the benefit of them walking around and aerating the soil and manuring and urinating out there. And I don't have to haul that urine or manure. I don't have to spread it. They do it for me. So it works out pretty good. It takes a while to do, and it really isn't expensive. I've got into this now. Let's see, 191 is my first set of fence posts that I bought, and then 2 rolls of wire at $75 a roll, and I will go through 3. So, I'm going to be, and then I did have to get some other wire and some other fence posts. So I'm going to be way under $400 to get this fenced off. However, told you last week, I'm only doing 2 legs of a square, because the other south leg, I did that last fall, late summer. And then the other leg that's on the west side, I did that years ago. So yeah, we're in pretty good shape today. Milking went well. Milking business is really going well. I get new people every week, and I'm really glad of that. This year, we have been processing a lot of chickens. Normally, we're just a Friday operation, but this summer, it's been Wednesday and Friday. And if it were going to be allowed, we could probably be doing 3 days a week, but too much. It's just too much. So we're going to be knocking this off at the end of this week. Next week, we're going back to 1 day. And if people haven't planned ahead, we just can't help them, because the kids start school, and, we just can't do it. Can't physically be done with the small crew. So school's important, and I got to make sure that the kids have their time to hit the books and learn to read and write. So anyway, Jill left kind of early today, and she did not have time to get my title for the message, I guess, tonight. But I've been thinking about this for a few days. Actually, for about a week, I've been thinking about this. And it's a touchy subject. It is a touchy subject, but it kind of rounded itself out this morning in a conversation that I had with a guy that I don't know. I don't know him personally. I've talked to him on the phone. Probably going on a year now. Probably had about 5 conversations with him. We have similar backgrounds. He's a serviceman as well, Army type, and Afghanistan type veteran, combat veteran, actually, Army. And had a conversation with him this morning, and it made the light flash, what this conversation is about. So I would title this Picking Your Farm Partners. Picking your farm partners. And this might be a little tough. But that's life. It is. So I think it's good to preface this conversation with a statement that, and the statement would be, a farm is a business. It is a business. And if it's not run like a business with the same type of attitudes that you would run a business, then it fails. It fails. If you don't pay attention to what you're doing, if you don't get out there and put in the extra mile, if you don't push yourself, if you don't stay ahead of new to you technologies in farming, if you don't do those things, your chances of success go down, right? So if you were running a business that said that, let's say you put chrome on bumpers, right? There's certain things that you have to do in order for that product to go out the door and for you to get paid, so you can keep the lights on and you can keep people paid. There's certain things you have to do. If you don't do those things, it doesn't happen. So this is the same in a lot of ways. What goes out the door is exchanged for dollars that come in. Without those dollars, we can't keep the lights on here. So I think people get the wrong idea sometimes. And I think the idea that people get is, it's a live happily ever after lifestyle, low impact. You don't spend time in traffic. You work your own hours, and on and on it goes. All the attributes of this lifestyle, and those for sure are true. But without the hard work, and without the dedication, and without making the hard decisions, all that can be flushed. Okay. So I would call this picking your team, your farm team, right? And this is a little difficult to do. It really is a little difficult to do. Now, I'm coming at this from a completely different point of view than most of you. When you're in the military, you don't actually get to pick your team. That's done at a different level. If you have somebody to come and work in your group or your squadron or whatever, they've been picked at a different level, and you get what you get. And you sometimes get good people, sometimes you get bad people. More than likely, the idea is they've gone through basic training, they've gone through tech school, they've gone through additional training. By the time they get to you, they've made it through all the places where if they were totally unacceptable, they would be weeded out. Of course, DEI had a lot to do with a problem in that, DEI. And in the early days of my time in the military, it was, they didn't call it sensitivity training. They called it something else. It was called social actions. and you were told a list of words that you can't say. I don't know. Didn't really take hold. Nobody paid any attention to it. We just kind of went about our business. If somebody was able to do the job, good. If they had a behavior problem, they had a behavior problem, and they were weeded out. But then those things kind of changed to where they almost sheltered people with behavior problems, right? They sheltered them and they gave them almost a status of, if you counsel them, then that's abuse, and then you're abusive. And so I found myself at different times in a place where I had my bosses that made me their number one guy because I could get stuff done. And then there were people that worked for me that had no interest in doing what I was telling them to do. So I was kind of stuck in the middle. And, the bosses had the same problem. Towards the end of my career, we uh, several times I can remember where we had really substandard people that should not have been wearing a uniform that were, and you couldn't counsel them because they could flip a switch and say that you're being abusive or harassment or things like that, or racist. That was a big one. That was in the early days of being called a racist. Like at first it was like, what? But after a while, that word had weight. And if someone called you that, there was repercussions to that. That had to be run to ground. And usually it was a tough go, especially where we didn't understand it at first. So, because we never really looked at it as, what the guy's race is or gal's race is. It was like, no, you didn't show up for work on time, or, you're not wearing your uniform properly, or you're not doing what you're told when you're told to do it, things like that. But you wound up having to be very careful. And that was one of the reasons why I got out at 20, is because I saw these things happening and I really didn't like it. I'd had enough. So anyway, you come to a civilian community like I did, and for a while it was a tough thing for me. I didn't understand it at first, and I was used to people who felt as though if you had an appointment, let's say, that you're going to do everything you can to get to that appointment. If something happens and you couldn't make the appointment, you're going to go directly to the person who you stood up and you're going to say, this is what happened. And you better be telling the truth. And I actually had something like that happen to me where I was late for work it was an early morning. It was a 5:00 show. And I was late for work because I stopped because there was a house fire and I was the first person there. It was a vehicle fire that was in a carport, and I pulled in and I banged on the windows and got the woman and her German shepherds out of the house. So I was actually a lifesaver, but I walked into the formation and then I got blocked in by the fire trucks. I walked into the formation hour and 15 minutes late. Well, I had to go right to my CO after that. I made an appointment with him and I said, I'm very sorry about that, but here's what happened. And I guess that's a pretty good excuse. And then he disseminated that out to some of the other bosses, like, hey, this is why Baker was walked in late, and got to cut him some slack. So, but out here in the civilian community, that's not always the way it is. It's not always the way it is. And so when you are in business, you're going to be doing business with other people, and you're going to have other people in your life. And I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what has served me. What has served me. All right. There has been times, and in the last week, there was actually 2 times, and I'll tell you what those things were. Um, where somebody comes into your life, and like this, the 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 most recent one was a guy showed up here, and he was wearing a T-shirt that was had a logo on it for a company that does air conditioning work. And I said to him, "You do air conditioning work, huh? Who do you work for?" And he says, "Da da 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 da." And I said, "They're a pretty good company. I mean, they're reliable." He was here actually dropping chickens off, and he says, "Well, yeah, they're pretty good. They've been around a long time." He says, "But I am gonna be going out on my own, and I'm always looking for, you know, work after work, part-time work." And so okay, here's a guy that wants to kind of go out on his own while he's working for someone else. Maybe. I said, okay, well, I had contacted another guy, a guy that's local, and I had said to him, "Hey, I got a problem with this cooler and I need it fixed." And he calls me right back. I left a message on his machine. He calls me right back and he says, "Yeah, okay, I can send somebody over there probably this afternoon. What kind of refrigerant is it? Da 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 da." Well, this afternoon came and went, and the next day came and went. The next day, 10 days came and went, and what that does to me is when I walk out the door in the morning and I know I got a hot spot, a cooler that's not working properly. I really need that cooler for my business, for the milk. It's like that's the first thing in my mind. I've got to get that resolved. So for 10 days, well, it was more than that. It was more like 12 days. For about 12 days, it was like, "Yeah, should I call this guy? Like maybe he forgot. I don't know. I don't want to irritate, another business." But all these days went by and I finally said, "That's it. That's it. I'm going to get somebody else." And then this other dude walks in here and he says, "Oh, yeah, I can do it." I said, "Well, get up and do it right now. Look at it because I need it done. I don't want to fool around. If we need parts, let's get them, get it done. You know, dollars are not an issue here. I just don't know how that equipment works, which is probably a weak spot. I could go and get myself educated on HVAC equipment. I got the background for it. I know quite a bit about it. I just don't know what this thing is doing. And frankly, I have enough to do. And I would think that you hire an expert, they'll come in, boom, they'll get it done. It'll work. It's designed to work. It worked for a lot of years before it started not working. I need it done." So then this other guy shows up here and I said, "Cool, good, do it." And he says, "Okay, I'll be up tonight. As soon as I get off work, I'll do it." Tomorrow night comes. Nope. That was Wednesday night last week. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night. Here it is Tuesday night. And that drains you as the business owner. It drains you and it makes you feel a little bit like, well, what is my money not green here or what? And I've had this happen a lot since I've been in this business. When you ask to hire somebody and they say, "Yes, I'll do it," but then they don't do it. And you start to feel like, what's going on here? Do I need to hold your hand or what? Um, and so what you have to do, what I have had to do is say zero grace, zero grace. Unless you come here, you tell me, "Well, it was a fire and I had to save a woman and her German shepherds, then I don't want to hear it. I do not want to hear it. Nope. I gave you a chance. A bunch of days have gone by. You haven't done anything to fix this equipment that I need to do what I want to do. That's why I called you. I called and said, "Can you?" You said, "Yes, I'll be over." But then you don't, right? So that is an example of what I'm talking about right now, because in the farming business, there are a lot of things here that I don't have the time to do, or I don't know how to do. I'll give you an example of an operation that went correctly. I was referred to a guy. So I had a problem with my tractor and I couldn't figure it out. I really need that little tractor. And I called this guy and he said, "Well, I can be over tomorrow afternoon. How's that?" Now, this is going to have to be hauled to his shop and then fixed. He's got to determine what's wrong with it and then fix it and then haul it back. So this is a big deal. And I'm going to buy a tractor. So no loader, no way to move bales, anything like that for could be a while. This guy was referred to me by my brother-in-law, and he said, "This guy's good. He'll get it done." His name is Michael Meyer, right? So he shows up here. He looks it over for about 5 minutes and said, "Yeah, I'm going to have to take it in because we're going to have to split it in two, and I need to do it at my shop." I said, "Okay." We load it on his trailer. He takes it. He's got it for 4 days. And he calls and says, "I'm ready to bring it back. Here's what it's going to cost you." He brings it back. I peel off $900 in green, hand it to him. Done. And the tractor has been working perfectly ever since. What was that? I don't remember what that was. Anyway, doesn't matter. But those guys exist. Those guys exist. So I've been struggling with this. I've had guys that are going to build things. "Hey, I'll be over this afternoon." And then they call me 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It looks like I'm not going to make it, and hey, I'm paying you, for goodness sake. But so what I've had to do is to alleviate the stress that goes with that is just, you don't work here. You're not coming. You're not on this team. And that can be hard to do sometimes because you like people, you don't want to hurt their feelings, but you kind of have to get over that, right? I tell my customers, "I will deliver this milk to you on this day, and it will be cold and it will be as pure as I can keep it." If I can't do that, you bet I'm going to be on the phone and telling them we have a problem. And you know what? We've been doing the milk business all this time, and I don't remember when we couldn't make delivery. I mean, we will go without milk in the house to make sure that our customers are covered. Why? Why do you do that? Okay. Why do you do that? If I was telling people, "Okay, I got you covered as far as your milk," and then it's just every other time or once a month, no milk, or some other, you know, unreliable aspect, people are going to be like, "Well, that's not good. You don't want to do that." Or you give them bad milk, let's say. It's happened. We've had two instances here, instances where people have said to me, "Hey, my milk was kind of sour smelling after 3 days." Like, I have no idea how that happened, but here you go. Here's another one. Hope that eases the pain. I don't know what happened. We're looking into it. Since then, we figured out, yeah, we had kind of a weak spot, and we've gotten through that. And it just so happens had to do with the cooler. Had to do with the cooler not working quite right. My cooler freezes up, and then it becomes a freezer. And you can't leave milk in there when the temperature is 20 because it'll freeze and that's not good. So we would have to just, all right, it gets nice and cold, gets down to 20, shut it off. And then monitor the temperature when it comes down and it's just going into, on our gauge, it's the yellow. You got to go down there, flip it back on. And sure enough, it'll get real cold if you leave it on for a few hours, and then we have to shut it off. So this is not working properly. So I think it had to do with that. And I said, we got to get this fixed, because the next thing that'll happen, it's not working at all. And then what do you do? You know, we're too big now to just use refrigerators, right? So the walk-in cooler it's very important to my operation right now. So what does that do when somebody tells you, and this is kind of one of the points here. This is one of the points, because I don't want you to think that I have never been late. I've already told you I've been late, or never delivered. I've had my share of problems. I have. But what do you do? You rectify that the best you can, and then fix whatever went wrong and keep going, right? And then you can, because if you can't swing it with 2 cows, you're not going to swing it with 10. You have to have things lined out. So, and I don't want this to sound as though I'm pointing the finger, because if you do, there's a few fingers pointing back at you. That's for sure. That's for sure. But when something like this happens, I'm looking at myself. I'm saying, am I doing everything that I can do to follow through on what I say I'm going to do? And there's been times where oh yeah, I can get that done. And then I have to say, hey, I actually can't do that. And, you really have to be realistic about the amount of time that you have, about the amount of expertise that you have, amount of energy you're going to have, the help that you have. You have to be realistic about it and say, well, I'm going to under promise and over deliver is a good way to go, instead of over promising and under deliver. Right. So this is something that I've had to look at myself over the years and say, nope, if I say I'm going to do this, and yeah, this can come and bite me in the rear end for sure. For sure. But that's the chance I take when I wade into a subject like this. And, if you say, yeah, well, you said you were going to be over and you never showed. I don't remember, but, it happens. And, but it's not a continual thing. And when it's brought to your attention, you have to turn from it and straighten out and start doing things right. Now, the two people, there was actually one more that I'm not going to go into, that did this in the last couple of weeks. You lose respect for them. You do. And as a business owner, and you are, if you're running a farm, especially if you want to do it a full-time thing, you don't want that to happen to you. You don't. If you say you're going to deliver a wholesome, good product and it's not, people will lose respect for you. So you have to stay on this all the time. And that's one thing that you can do, because this is you we're talking about. So you can assign yourself, you can watch what you're doing, you can keep a journal. My wife does, because it helps her to remind and prioritize things. Not a journal, but a brain book, she calls it. I don't necessarily do that. I wish I did, but I just don't. I start it and then I let it go a couple of days and then I'm not doing it, But I wouldn't say that I'm flying by the seat of my pants either. I have a list, a mental list. I got it all right here. I got to fly in here too. Need a fly swatter to whack him. But then the conversation that I had this morning, I had a conversation with this guy this morning. And like I said, he's got a military, I'm not sure I want to use the word career because he wasn't a career soldier, but he enlisted. He was trained. He went to Afghanistan. He did what he was asked to do. He came back, wasn't really something he wanted to re-up for, and he got out. He was honorably discharged, and he wanted to go into farming. And he listens to the things that I say. And, when he got in a place with the Department of Agriculture, he called me and he needed advice. And I give advice all the time, But what I noticed this morning when I talked to him, he told me what is happening. He had received some paperwork in the mail and they wanted to summons him into a civil court and da-da-da-da-da. And as I've told you before, he has no contract with the health department, of all places, the health department. And they want to summons him into a civil court and they want to just scare him. And but he's going to do okay. He was trying to get it dismissed. And I said, no, let him spend some money pursuing you. You just make sure that the judge knows you don't have a contract with them and you're going to be okay. They don't get to tell you what to do on your own property, right? So anyway, but that's a side note. But as I was listening to him, he's much younger than me. I was starting to hear what they have been saying to him. So there's a board of directors at the health department, of all places. And if you don't know this, you have the United States Department of Agriculture, you have the State Department of Agriculture. In our state, it's the Michigan Department of Agriculture. And then at the county level, you have the health department, right? But they all work the same agenda. And you don't need to do business with them if you don't want to. You don't. You absolutely do not. They can be totally irrelevant to you if you shape your operation in a way that you're selling directly to your customers. You're not selling to restaurants. You're not going to farmers markets. Farmers markets on county property, right? So the health department has a say, and so on. You keep it private instead of public. You don't sell to retail stores. If you're going to have a store, have your own store. Right. And that's what you do. You don't invite the health department to come in and do a health inspection on your private store. That would be foolish to do that because they could make you jump through all kinds of hoops. And you don't want that. They don't have the authority to come on private property and do that. So you just don't get in a contract with them. You don't take any permits for them or anything like that. And that way they have no authority on your private property. They're irrelevant. They're basically irrelevant to you. Same with the State Department of Ag and most assuredly the U.S. Department of Ag. Now they have guidelines and they'd love to bring you into compliance with their guidelines, but you pay a price. And what do you get out of it? A star on your forehead? You don't get anything out of it. They actually want you to pay them so they can share the guidelines with you. And then you get to write on your business card, USDA approved. USDA smiley face. We have a smiley face from the USDA. Oh, ain't that special? But if you're like me and you just don't want to do business with them, you don't want to fall into their authority, they offer you nothing, then they will, when they talk about you, they will have what's called a frowny face. They frown on you. Oh, no, don't frown on me. Oh, I don't want to be frowned on. So anyway, I'm talking to this guy this morning, and I'm starting to hear that they've been working on him. They've been working on him. And so I inquired, who exactly is this that's signing these documents? And he goes on to tell me, oh, well, it is a woman. Got nothing against women, but anyway. And she's a gynecologist, and she's a very liberal woman, very liberal woman, very woke woman. And she's runs the health department there, county health department. And she's decided that she doesn't want him doing herd shares. And so she's gone as far as to say that his ideals for his family are not in line with American lifestyle. So she decided what that was because they're Christians, they're homeschoolers. He's ex-military. He's a combat veteran, right? And he is in farming. They're not into a lot of the normal stuff. They don't have a TV, probably. They, things like that. That is something she doesn't like. And so she's brought that to his attention. And I could see that it got to him. It got to him. I could hear it. And I'm thinking, here's some towny gal that went through the system and became, okay, a gynecologist. I dabble in gynecology myself. And she really doesn't like this guy because of who he is. And so she's made it pretty well known, and it's starting to affect him, right? Starting to affect him. So I wish that he lived near me so I could spend a little time with him and find out, why is that affecting you? Well, he got out of the military as a young, very young, his first hitch. So he's not an older guy. And, when you get out after 4 or 6 years, something like that, you're still in that mode of anybody older than you, they could probably know more, or anybody that's got some letters behind their name. I remember that so well. When I got here, I remember the veterinarian pulled in the yard, and I had been told she was a big ringleader with the homeschoolers in the area, and she was coming to say hi and introduce herself. I took it totally different. It was like, this is somebody that I need to salute. This would be an officer if we were active duty. And so I was like, just keep my mouth shut. Yeah. No. Yes, ma'am. May I help you, ma'am? I was still in that mode. And I kind of think that's where he is right now. And that's totally incorrect in the civilian world. Totally incorrect. Like they don't expect that, and they don't deserve that. I don't care if they went to 4 years of college. Their credibility is going down, actually, in my opinion. What I run into with these types of people. Actually, this lady's really nice. We're good friends, and I really like her a lot. And I like her husband. He's my vet. She's a vet too. But I know how that can be. But the other things that I told you about, when you contract with people and they blow you off, that can have the same effect on you. You can actually lose respect for yourself. You can lose self-respect over that. And when you keep company with people like that, you continue to lose respect, because you know that they're not going to do what they say, that anything that they say, maybe they know, maybe they don't, but I don't have any proof of it right here. And I contracted you to do something and you didn't do it. You just didn't do it. So it's imperative, I believe, anyway, in my life, that you separate from them. You separate. I mean, you can still be friends, I guess. I don't know. Almost don't think so, because that's not who you are. You want to surround yourself with people who do what they say, show up on time, have integrity, all those things. You want to surround yourself with those people, not people who don't. And you can kind of see it. You can kind of figure it out. Now, anybody can go from no integrity to high integrity. It takes time, takes perseverance, but that needs to be a part of who you are as a farmer. It needs to be. Now, this other guy that I was talking to today, I could tell he's not really there. And he's letting people like bureaucrat types kind of push him around and kind of threaten them. And after I talked to him for a while, I made him understand who he is and how dare someone like that infringed on his constitutionally protected right to grow food and to make a living in these United States. How dare you allow that? How dare she do that? But how dare you, as an oath taker, allow that? You know, I was giving him the boot. I'm saying, you're better than that. You need to be much better than that and have respect for what you're doing and who you are, and do not let people trample on you like that. You know, he said some things to me. I've heard other people say this, and it comes across as it's a grand conspiracy. It really, most of the time, isn't. You have people who don't have the ability to produce that wind up in positions like, you know, the township and health department and things like that. You know, if you're a nurse, go be a nurse. Don't be working at the health department pushing papers and bossing people around. But a lot of times they settle there because they're not very good at what they're trained to do. And so that's a good place where they can, you know, make a living. And they have a tendency to want to tell people what to do because they're more educated. You know, I bet you this young man, being part of an airborne unit and all the training he's had, has a lot more life experience than this gynecologist that's running the health department there in wherever it is, someplace in Virginia. Another thing that I gleaned from this whole conversation is there are people who should be coming to his defense in the part of the country that he lives and who he does business with. I'm not going to mention names, but are totally blowing him off. And that's a little bit disconcerting is the word that I'm looking for, I guess. That's a little bit tough to take. If you're going to be in this food movement and you want to be somebody that stands up for rights, you need to do it. Not just say you do it, not just say it from the podium and in books and stuff like that. You need to do it because there are weaker ones amongst us that we have to protect, and we have the ability to protect, but we just don't have time for it. So they lose respect. They lose my respect. Definitely lose my respect. Where I have come on this farming operation, you know, you guys have been with me a long time. There was a time when we made a good run at this and then ran some bumps in the road, had no one to turn to. No one. There was nobody that we could ask. There was some big farmers out there. They knew about the problems we were having, but they weren't going to ring and say, hey, maybe you ought to try this, or hey, do you need some help with something? No, they didn't do that. And even when they were asked about it, it was like, oh, everybody's got to fight their own battles. Well, I don't know about that. You know, where we go one, we go all, right? And there is a boogeyman out there. We really do need to stick together. And there was times when we didn't feel as though we could continue. we got through it, we muddled through it, and then all of a sudden the light started to come on. Then you know, there was thoughts about like the whole celebrity status. And I didn't like that because anytime I had been tagged to fly someplace and give some sort of presentation, it was always like, oh, yeah, you got to get exposure. Hey, am I getting paid for this? Well, your hotel room and your plane fare. Yeah, but I'm going to be gone from the farm for 4 days. Am I going to get paid? Well, no, you got to get yourself out there. What, and write a book? I'm not an author. I'm a farmer. Why am I going and speaking to people? That's not what I do. So I got cozied up with some of those people for a while, but then I started to think, wait a minute. I thought we were farmers. I thought we work the land and create a product, sell the product, and that's how we make a living. I didn't think we were getting, $5,000 for a speaking engagement. That's not what I do. And so I really had to kind of turn away from that and saying, do I even want to do that? That's not the direction I see myself going. I don't want to do that, So I started bearing back down on the farm and production. And sure enough, the opportunities come and okay. And what do you know? We're actually doing the thing and it's working. That's really what this is all about. That's what it is all about. And so once I could see that and head towards that, all these peripheral things just drop off. And this whole integrity issue was something that I was plagued with the whole time, until I said, wait a minute, I'm running a top-notch operation here. I don't have to put up with somebody who doesn't return a phone call. Gone. I'll find somebody else. I'll find somebody better. Matter of fact, I don't want to see you again. I don't want to see you. You call me now, I'll just say, no, I got somebody else. Bye. Not going to give you a second chance. I don't want to be surrounded by those people. And I certainly don't want to be one of those people, right? I guess all of this said, maybe my headlights are out a little further than you all's are. Maybe I know things that you guys just don't know, or I have a feeling, I have a sixth sense about it. Maybe. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't think so. I would not be operating every day with the sense of urgency that I've got to get this complete. And then we just go into operations mode. Like I'm in research and development for part of my day. I'm in operations for part of my day, at some point it'll be complete and there will be no more, big chunks of fence to be built. Once they're built, that's it. We maintain them. Maybe something can go wrong. We might have to fix it. A steer might fall on it when it drops over dead. That could happen. But then it's just operations. We just operate. And then we operate it better and better and better, to keep moving forward, keep moving ahead. That day is coming here. It's closer every single day. And I actually have a sense of urgency every day. I got to get this done. Winter's coming. I want this complete. And that's what keeps me going. I don't think it would be the same. I don't think I'd have the same zest for life if I knew that tomorrow morning I got to be there to punch a clock. Then 4 o'clock, I punch it again. What'd you get done? I don't remember. I don't know. I was there and I did what they told me to do. Was it exciting? No, it wasn't. I don't think I want that. I know I don't want that. But this excites me. I'll tell you what, this project next door, this might sound a little weird, but it's sort of like an anecdotal evidence, I guess. And it's just a thing. It's just a thing that's going to happen. And I am really looking forward to it. But I will open the gate into the new pasture that we've just built. Electric's on, bird houses are up. Yeah, that's part of it. That's part of it. You want bird houses out there because the cattle struggle with flies in the summer. Birds love the flies. So we put bird houses up. It's going to be done right. Like I go over there now and I see the fence post nice and straight. I see the wire strung nice and straight, nice and tight. Everything's done right. I moved a fence post yesterday, a big one it was a constructed H post. I had to take it completely apart because it was 4 inches off, 3 inches off. Would anybody notice it? I would notice it. And 10 years from now, I would notice it. So I moved it, and it took me an hour to do. I had to take everything apart, pull this post out, redig the hole, move it over 3 inches, put it back in, pack it, and rebuild it. Do it right. Because this is a real business. But the thing that I'm looking forward to, this anecdotal evidence, is it evidence? I don't know. It's an anecdotal story meant to give you enthusiasms for this lifestyle. But I'm going to open the gate and I'm going to watch those cows walk through there. There hasn't been cows on there in 20 years. And I'm going to stand there and I'm going to watch it. Hopefully I'm sitting there with the Jeep and Jill's sitting next to me and we just watch the cows go out there, peaceful as can be, just eating to their heart's content. Right now, my steers are on a bale. Can you believe that? We have had so little rain this year. That's okay because I got plenty of hay. I'm just having to do that. But and I will get immense joy out of that. I will. Why? Well, there was a time when I didn't even own that land. Never mind a single fence post on that whole property. It wasn't there. It all had to be done step by step by step. All the barbed wire had to be strung, had to be tightened, had to be stapled, had to be clipped. All that stuff had to be done. And it's got to be straight. It's got to be proper. It's got to be correct. Why? Because if you don't do it right, you get cows in the road. That's not good. That's never good to have cows in the road. Okay. I hope that helps. I want those of you that have entered into this to take it seriously. Do your job properly so you can have respect for what you're doing and have respect for yourself. It has served me, and I will continue to do it. When it comes to like the health department and those people, they screw with people that they don't respect. If they respect you, they don't want to go. What is it that they respect? If you do what you say and you say what you're going to do, and if you've done it before and you've won, you'll do it to them and you'll win. I have people contact me a lot about, they call them legal problems. I call them regulatory problems. If it's a legal problem, I'm probably not the guy to talk to. If you're in legal trouble, meaning you've done something illegal, you don't want to be talking to me, because I could give you, I can't even tell you what it's like to be in jail or prison because I haven't been. And I'm not going to give you advice to leave the country. So if you broke the law, you're going to have to deal with it. If it's regulatory, regulatory is always preceded by a contract or an agreement or a license. And I can help you with that. I can definitely help you with that. And it's actually quite simple. But I've given really good advice to people And there was a gal, I think it was last summer, I was sharing some of this info with you. And she had a really good case, really good case if she had just done and followed through on the steps that I outlined for her. And she was real close, but then fear overcame her. And now she won't answer a phone call. You know, she's ashamed of herself. She's ashamed of herself. So what did she do? She lost respect for herself. And she should have. Not saying she can't recover from it. She certainly can. But we come across this all the time where I tell people, okay, you're going to have to do this, this, and this. And they'll do this and this, but they'll leave out the third. And I want to say, like, why didn't you follow through? Now you're screwed. Now you're screwed because you've just swung the door open to these regulators to come in and tell you to do everything. So they lose respect for themselves. And that's a tough go. That's a tough go because I know it can be a little bit daunting when you're dealing with, you know, suits. Just call them suits. It can be, unless you know the truth and you've been through it a couple of times. Anyway, that's all I have to say tonight. There has been very little input on this. Very little input. So what? Nothing? You guys got nothing to say tonight? I'm going to give you a couple minutes if you want to write something in, and I'll comment on it. If not, I'm going to cut out. I've got things to do. And I still got no more light. That's the downside of this time of the year. It's cooler, better sleeping at night. I never understand why so many people need permission slips. Well, come on. You do understand because you're enlightened now, but there was a time when you weren't. There was a time when I wasn't. When I first got here, I thought, oh, I want to go on a farm. I want to call up the Department of Ag, and I'm sure that they'll help me. No, they just want you to get permission from them to do all the things that you want to do. They don't offer any expertise or help or anything like that. They just are there to regulate, and they do it on the behalf of industrial agriculture because the shtick is, let's get all these small farmers out of here. That's their shtick. Now, if that's not what they're doing, they think I'm defaming them, sue me. Sue me. Go ahead. Yeah, we got the call tomorrow night for sure. Tomorrow night is our Gary, I think we're going to change it. Jill has been calling it a mentoring call. And I think that's the direction that we're going to go. We're going to go. Remember last time I said, what do you guys think about this, you know, and I got a lot of good input. And I've been thinking about it. And it is more of a mentoring call. Really, it is more of a mentoring call because let's say you worked for me, and my job as a non-commissioned officer is to develop you as an effective whatever it is you do, whatever it is you do within the organization that we work. And I was referring to the military, non-commissioned officer, sergeant. My job is to train my replacement. And the guy that I work for, he's training me to replace him. And we're always moving up. I'm always moving up. And you hear things about failing upward. That's DEI. That doesn't happen in the real world where we have to do real things. DEI is make-believe. And I think it's toast at this point. Anytime anything even has a whiff of DEI, people are just like, no. I got something. Okay. So anyway, our mentoring call is going to shift slightly. I'm going to be asking questions about, I want to know what's going on there. I want to know what you're doing. I want to see some sketches. I want to see an overview. because I'm mentoring you. And I'm going to say, well, you're paying me for consulting. If I see something that's a hot spot, I'm going to say, hey, what about that? You know, do you see that you've got a weak spot there? When I say hot spot, I mean usually in machinery, you know, when something's misaligned, it creates a hot spot. Or in agriculture too, like when animals are having a problem, it's inflammation and it's a hot spot, right? You want everything running cool, right? But yeah, I think DEI is going down the road because it's ineffective and it costs money. And what are we here for? We're here to make a living off of this property that we own. We're farming. We're not doing it for nostalgia purposes. We're not doing it for to get our picture in a calendar or something. That's not the point. The point is make a living, right? And if you can't make a living doing it, well, then you're not doing something right. You know, there's something wrong. There's a hot spot and it needs to be straightened out. So yeah, I think that we want to just shift slightly with that into a mentoring scenario. And you know, as Belva said, get into the nitty gritty. She used the word nitty gritty. I hadn't heard that for a long time. That was like a 70s term, the nitty gritty. The Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. I bet you're old enough to remember them. I can't remember any of their tunes, but I just remember the band name, the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. All right, so that's tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. If you all are not anyone can farm Tribe Plus members, then you will need to go to bakersgreenacres.com and follow the links and become a Plus member. And you'll become one of the few, the proud, the Plus members. And that entitles you to the mentoring call on every other Wednesday night where you get to talk to me directly, ask questions, show me diagrams, all that stuff. So if you're serious about this, that would be a thing that I would want. I really would. And I think the people that we have, when you talk to them, when we have conversations, they are serious about what they're doing. And they're not just coming to burn my ears off with, you know, things they just want to yak about, you know. They're serious about because they've dedicated time, money, and their lives to it. And I think it is worth dedicating your time, your money, and your life to it. Or else I wouldn't be here. You know, this isn't like, well, I had nothing else to do, so might as well farm. You know, no. That's not the way this type of farming works. You're either all in or you're not in it at all, right? Now, industrial ag, I can get a job there and I just run a tractor. That's it. 8 hours on a tractor, 8 hours, you know, a shift milking cows. You know, I'm not really into it, but they pay me to do it. Well, I don't want to do that. I've done that before. It was not that exciting. I want to be into what I'm doing. It's sort of like being married to my wife. Like I'm into her, right? Otherwise, I just get somebody that doesn't speak English and looks good and does the dishes and cooks, you know? How old is that garlic braid? Ooh, you'd have to ask Beth about that. Let's see. Time I felt it. Oh, it's light. It's very light. There's no garlic in there. But I don't want to touch it because it could fall apart. Beth made that, and that year I had a lot of garlic, and I hung it there, and I knew it was a sacrifice, but it looks so cool. You know, it's really so cool. But that's not done for cool looking. That's how you, you know, I'm sure. That's how you store it. You hang it up like that and it stays good. All right. If there's no other comments or questions or anything like that, I'm going to get going, and I will see those of you on the mentoring call tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. If you choose to get signed up, like tonight, tomorrow, Jill sends you a link, call link. She puts you on the list, and you get it. It's sort of like a reminder. And then you just follow the steps, and you're on Zoom, and there's your picture right there, and my picture, and Gary and Belva, and Ann Putnam, and Keith sometimes. Let's see. I'm at a loss right now. But anyway, I'm going to get going. It's Mark from Baker's Green Acres. Remember, anyone can farm. Get out there and get it done. Good night.